This full moon is basically a time for getting very real with ourselves, being compassionate, but also honest with ourselves to recognize the real limitations that do exist, but also to recognize the absence of old limitations that we still kind of like think are there but aren't, simply because we haven't practiced living the life that goes beyond those limitations. Hello. This is a general reading of the Aquarius full moon, I believe, in tropical astrology, but I'm a sidereal astrologer because I like to make things difficult for myself, so it's kind of also actually at the same time Capricorn full moon. If you look at my previous videos, I think, oh no, I privated one of them because I was trying to have a personality that I don't have. I was trying to be bubbly and excited. So I got rid of it because it just felt weird. But I think it was a Capricorn new moon or Cancer full moon. Anyway, so including that one, but also my previous ones, you'll see a pattern which I've only really been around to post for something involving Capricorn and Cancer. That'll change. I'm gonna be holding myself to a more rigid schedule. I just haven't really had the like time, energy, or like the time and energy management needed in order to like be doing this more consistently until this point. And this will actually bring us into what this full moon is about. So, as I said, this is a sidereal Capricorn full moon. Yeah, the sun is in sidereal Cancer and the moon is in sidereal Capricorn. It's like a 24 degrees difference between sidereal and tropical. I'll go over it another time, but it is happening at 9:37 p.m. Central Standard Time on July 23rd. Mercury's in Gemini, Venus and Mars are both in Leo, and then whatever else. Saturn is retrograde, Chiron is retrograde, Jupiter is retrograde, Pluto and Neptune are all also retrograde. We love it. It seems that it's usually in the summer in the northern hemisphere that like all of the outer planets just decide to take their sweet, sweet time. But anyway, so without getting too in depth about like the zodiac signs of this, because that's only a small part of the whole reading, what really stands out to me is that the moon is sandwiched in between Pluto and Saturn retrograde. And the moon is also opposing Mercury because Mercury is conjunct the sun at this time. What this configuration is saying to me is that the moon is about the emotions, the subconscious, and Pluto is also kind of about the subconscious. It's about subconscious power and drive for transformation. Especially when Pluto is connected with Mercury like it is now in opposition, that is very much about enacting our will and getting done the things that need to happen in order to actually get somewhere, to, like I was saying in I think a previous video, getting what is up here out there into the world. And this full moon is about getting very real with ourselves about what our actual limitations really truly are. It's kind of like we're doing shadow work around our ideas of responsibility, discipline, capability, and really eliminating those mental blocks around why you can't do what it is that you want to do, and getting real about whether or not you actually don't or do have the time and energy to get stuff done. I know I'm diving directly into the thing that is going to probably upset a few people. If you're currently at a point where you can't even get out of bed to like get food or use the restroom or like whatever, if you really are in that space right now, I'm not talking to you unless there's a part of you that thinks that you might need to hear what I'm going to say during this video. But that's probably a small portion of you who are actively doing whatever you can to improve your situation. This kind of gives me like a Ten of Swords type of vibe where you're just kind of like looking at your life, you're looking around you, you're looking inward, and you're just like, enough is enough. I can't keep living like this anymore. This can have many different things. Like, this can go from like living in squalor to simply just like recognizing that you don't really have any excuses anymore to not like do certain things. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. I think I just wanted to prepare you for the general, like, I'm not here to coddle you. I think I'm diving into this because this moon Pluto Saturn conjunction is just really strong, especially since they're all opposing Mercury as well as the sun, of course. So that's kind of what I'll be talking about during this video. If that's something that is going to upset you, you can do whatever you want. I'm not going to tell you not to listen to the rest of this or whatever else, because there might be something in here that you can take. But yes, so this can go from like small mundane tasks to like larger things. I'll get into like examples of my own limitation, reconsideration, whatever. But anyway, so it's diving into this shadow work around responsibility and our capability and getting our minds to work for us by recognizing which limitations exist and which ones only exist in our memory. It's a full moon where we're challenging all the reasons why we are holding ourselves back from whatever it is that we do want. Recognizing for particular things that maybe it's not difficult because you're unable to do it, but because what you want to do is simply takes a little bit of work and a little bit of practice to just kind of get used to doing it. It's about recognizing where old limitations have dissolved, but we still kind of like think that they're there. Basically, it's about not going so easy on ourselves like we may have been doing in the past, being too lenient, allowing ourselves to kind of have sort of crappy experiences because we think that that's all that we're capable of having or doing. It's about recognizing excuses versus real limitations and differentiating between self-imposed limitations and the ones that are really actually there, and getting into like actually like chipping away at the manufactured ones that exist. So, okay, I'm kind of all over the place and not really being as specific as I would like to be, so I'll give you an example from my life. So, I've experienced depression, anxiety, ADHD, CPTSD, and PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. School and undergrad were kind of like a mild living hell, or purgatory, if you will. I basically had to conserve all of my energy, attention, emotions toward just graduating. But also during this time, I was able to get onto the right medications for my depression and my ADHD, which kind of brought my functioning levels from like a 25% capacity up to maybe 50% capacity on good days. But I was still losing like half of my time to the PMDD. And so finally, I figured out what would actually help it, and I got on birth control that basically eliminates my period, which is great. I'm very blessed. And suddenly, I basically just like go from having 50% capacity to, honestly, I kind of want to say full capacity, like 100% capacity, but I haven't been utilizing it in the way that I guess I could say that like on a good day, I operate at like 75% capacity. I'm able to like get stuff done. Maybe I'm able to sit down and create something like I am right now. But because I spent so much of my life at 25% capacity, I my window, I guess, for movement, for doing the things that I want to do has remained fairly small. So, like, yes, my disorders still exist, but they're mostly treated right now. And I still have low functioning days, but it also comes down to like routines and habits and neural programming. Like if I'm not used to washing the dishes every day or cooking every day or showering every day or as often as I would like to, exercising every day, if I'm not used to that, then if I don't practice it, I'm going to think that I'm not able to do it, if that makes sense. It's taken me 20 minutes to try to describe this. I'm so sorry. So if we take the idea of like a comfort zone and kind of turn it into like a capability zone, my comfort zone had to be small. That window of movement that I was talking about, that zone had to be small because I needed to just make it through the day. But those barriers that had protected me inside this zone are kind of gone now, but I still think that I cannot leave it. And oh my god, this gets into, oh, if you want me to talk about learned helplessness at some point, please let me know. I would love to talk about it because I think that it's such an important concept. Basically, it's like if you repeatedly can't do a certain thing, then you stop trying even when the barriers are removed. That's what this is. That's what this full moon is about. Recognizing where we have learned over time to not getting words out. So it's kind of a time of like retraining ourselves out of learned helplessness into having a sense of self-efficacy, the ability to go into your day and know that you're able to do what you want to do, to wake up, know that you're going to do your morning routine, know that you're going to cook something nice for yourself, knowing that you're going to put in the time and effort into your passion project or your side hustle. So it is important to determine where you are, because if you're still getting out of bare minimum functioning, you don't want to try to do something that requires like all of your spoons. It's better to just start with something relatively small because you don't want to sabotage this whole process. You don't want to reinforce the learned helplessness. And I think when you're kind of like still in it, it can suck to hear the phrase learned helplessness because you don't really want to be called helpless or think of yourself as helpless. You're not, first of all, but it's something that like it's a basic part of psychology. Like everybody can experience it, especially those who were born and raised in tumultuous environments where you knew that you had no control over the situation. It can even be something like that. Like maybe you did grow up in a situation like that where you had no control over your circumstances at all and those circumstances sucked. Maybe now you're an adult, but you don't feel like you have any control over the direction of your life. So we want to compassionately push ourselves to go beyond our previous limitations. And you kind of want to, as Irene Lyon says, I think she's quoting someone else, but you want to titrate it. You don't want to just dive into 100% capacity activities when you're struggling to get to like 30%. You want to find something that you think is possible, at least some of the time. And even if there are still real limitations that are holding you back from being where you want to be, it's still good to look into potential solutions. Like, most of us are not really doomed to suffer, and a lot of the time we stop ourselves from finding solutions because we don't think that they exist, or because they haven't worked in the past, or because they just seem way too simple to be effective. We can really hold ourselves back with the wow, thanks, I'm cured mentality. And like, there are clear moments when you really do just like look at someone and you're like, you really have no idea, do you? But if someone experiences the same or similar struggles to you, and if they give you that same wow, thanks, I'm cured advice, listen to them, maybe. This is not a space for coddling, but we are compassionate here. We believe in being honest with ourselves and also kind to ourselves, but we don't want to limit ourselves. We don't want to be too easy on ourselves to the point where we don't get anywhere. So, to wrap that up, this full moon is basically a time for getting very real with ourselves, being compassionate, but also honest with ourselves, to recognize the real limitations that do exist, but also to recognize the absence of old limitations that we still kind of like think are there but aren't, simply because we haven't practiced living the life that goes beyond those limitations. Baby steps, making things accessible, enjoyable, or at least just tolerable. I thought that I would hate having gloves when I wash dishes, because I thought that I would hate the experience of like the outside being wet and the inside. I have sensory issues, so like strange little things bother me, but I'm so glad I got dishwashing gloves because now it's actually tolerable, sometimes even enjoyable. But anyway, yeah, that's one example. So yes, baby steps, self-compassion, but also being honest with ourselves and pushing ourselves bit by bit to expand beyond what we were previously unable to do. Another thing that is happening in the skies right now is Jupiter reversed opposite Mars. Jupiter is in Aquarius and Mars is in Leo. This has me thinking about communities. We love Aquarius. And I think also the tropical Aquarius full moon and all that ties into this. Anyway, I've spent a lot of time in online communities. And I've seen different things in different ones, different cultures, different attitudes, and a lot of them have been centered around mental health. And we all need different things at different times. Sometimes we do need groups of people who will tell us that they're proud of us for just getting out of bed, and that's okay. If that's where you're at, that's where you're at. But if circumstances have changed to the point where you are actually able to function at a slightly higher capacity, then at that point, being in a community in which you are rewarded for the bare minimum might reinforce staying at that level. So, are you part of groups that compassionately push you to increase your capacity and experience better for yourself, or are you in groups that kind of stall your growth because maybe you've outgrown them but they still feel good, but ultimately they hold you back? And also, with this Saturn Pluto Moon personal power thing going on, and also the influence of community, there might be some fear or guilt or shame even for feeling like you're leaving others behind by getting better, or fearing that getting better will lead to changes that might seem like you're not true to yourself, but you are. That could be something that is holding some of us back. But yeah, a lot of this comes down to our thoughts, habits, routines, nervous system regulation, which is something that I have studied quite a lot, not like graduate level or anything, or God forbid PhD level, but my senior project, my senior research was about the nervous system and managing like stress, chronic stress, nervous system stuff, specifically geared towards teachers. I filmed all of it just so I could have something finished for a final product. I hate all of it, so I can refilm it if that is something that interests anybody. I know I have a lot of teacher friends. I was an ed major, but if there are any teachers that I don't know yet who watch this channel, let me know if that's a resource you would like to have. It comes down to us basically just expanding our capacity and not letting ourselves like slide, not letting ourselves just continue to stay at the same plateau when things really can get better. So let's take a look at the Cosmic Tarot and get a little bit more insight into this full moon. The Devil, interesting, Capricorn. The Devil card is ruled by Capricorn. So let's ask the cards how we can embrace our personal power so that we can expand our capacity. I hope you haven't counted the number of times that I've said capacity throughout this video. How can we expand our bandwidth to build a life that brings us the security, happiness, and fulfillment, or just contentment that we need and desire? How can we embrace our personal power so that we can have the security, happiness, and fulfillment that we need and desire? The Devil being the first thing to jump out has me thinking about, again, limitations. The people in the image. It looks like a very, very fun club. Yes, limitations, people being chained up. Look at that septum piercing. Oh, he thinks he's so cool. In a few different versions of this card, it seems like there are a lot of situations where it seems like you're shackled to something, but you're actually not. It's kind of like the Two of Swords, or a little bit like the Eight of Swords, where all we see around us are the barriers, but there's actually kind of definitely a way through or a way out. Or in the Shadowscapes Devil card, there's a person who is chained up, and above them is the key to get out, but they are so just mired in their awful circumstances that they haven't really bothered to look and find that key. Again, kind of getting into learned helplessness. So, what to release, what to bring in, where we can find support, and how to sustain these changes, and then any additional guidance. Cut out a lot of my shuffling because I take a long time to shuffle. A tiny pile fell out, so I'm just gonna shuffle that one. Seven of Pentacles. It looks kind of like a storm had gone through this person's field, garden, whatever, and just kind of like messed everything up. Like all the hard work that you've put into something has just been completely eliminated, but he's still holding on to two pentacles. It's kind of like the Five of Cups, I think, where the person is focused on the three cups that have fallen but isn't noticing the two that are still upright. Oh, Seven of Pentacles usually signals to me, not really with this imagery, progress. And something that I was going to talk about was proof lists, which I heard about through Africa Brooke's podcast, Beyond the Self, I believe, where she talks about keeping a list of all of your accomplishments throughout the day or week or whatever. I think it's really good to do something like that, especially if you tend to reach the end of your day and think, God, I got nothing done, except for the fact that you like did laundry and made yourself some food and like did that one errand that you've been putting off forever. For a lot of us, if we don't write that stuff down, we'll reach the end of our day and be like, God, I got nowhere. But like, you sure about that? So that's a really cool thing to do. Highly recommend that. I use the app Dailyo to keep track of my mood, but also to keep track of the activities that I do. So that's one option. But you can also just like use your notes app or a journal and write down what you did. It's kind of like writing a to-do list, but like after you've done the stuff. Which, if to-do lists are daunting to you, I definitely recommend like just like writing down 2 options, maybe 3 options of what you want to do that day or need to do that day, and then complete those before moving on or whatever. But yeah, instead of to-do lists, I like lists that show what you've done. What to release, what to bring in, how I can find support, how to sustain these changes, and additional guidance. What to release, 8 of Wands. You're not gonna accomplish everything that you want to in one day unless if that everything that you want is, I don't know, just to do some basic simple task, like if the only thing that you want to do that day is just wash your face, like, great. But I think that this 8 of Wands, what to release, I think that this has a lot to do with ourselves not setting ourselves up for failure by overextending ourselves too soon or by being too ambitious about things. Small wins. Small wins. Because if you find yourself repeatedly not being able to do things, like I said earlier, you know, it's gonna feel like you're never gonna be able to do those things, but really, maybe you just didn't lay out the right kind of foundation to get the stuff done. But also, even things like large projects. You know what I'm thinking of with the 7 of Pentacles now, too? I don't know, the first week of June, I got started with the big declutter of 2021, and basically my entire apartment for the past, since June, has just been like boxes everywhere. I finally actually went through all my books. I had to take apart 2 big bookcases, and I put all my books into boxes to go through later and only to take out what I wanted to keep. I had way over 5, 7, whatever boxes of just like things, craft materials, books, junk. And it was just like stressing me out. It was just like, oh my God, am I ever gonna get through all of this? But anyway, what I'm trying to say with that is that I got started on the big declutter of 2021, and I know that it is going to take until at least the end of August, maybe even September, for me to get to a point where I feel really good about my space. And because I recognize that that sort of thing is going to take a long time, I'm not pushing myself to try to get everything done in a day. So that is what the 8 of Wands is advising against. What to bring in? 5 of Wands. I kind of see this as us like battling our own limiting thoughts, battling our own limiting beliefs, battling our old self, which might kind of be our current self. This is kind of like introducing this like higher self. I try to not get too new agey with things, but bear with me. You know what I mean? Like how there is the self that is able to witness the current self, the witness self who is looking at your situation kind of like, damn, ugh, this could be better. It's kind of like embracing that higher self that looks forward, looks into the future positively, that sees growth, stepping more into that and away from the self that is like resisting change, the self that is like, no, I can't do that. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. Do you really not have the time or energy? Or are you just not used to actually making the time and putting the energy in to the thing that you need to do? Again, you know where you're at in life. This is about getting real with ourselves, but not being hard on ourselves. We're not going easy on ourselves, but we're also not beating ourselves up, okay? Don't beat yourself up. Even though this is in the bringing in position. So this is the recognizing when we want to default to our old patterns of non-action or avoidance. Recognizing when we're falling into those traps, falling into that mindset, whatever, and then taking opposite action. That's not easy to do, and I'm not going to get into my non-expert advice on that sort of thing, but I can in the future. But yeah, behavioral activation strategies. Mel Robbins' 5 second rule or whatever it is. Moving on, where we can find support. The world. Cool. Titties. Where we can find support. I think what this is kind of giving me is it's not that hard to find the support that you need. Like, it's not too hard to find like-minded communities of people who also face the same struggles, but also want to get better and to experience better things in their lives. I don't know. I think just like getting generally connected with people who have the same goals as you is basically it. Uh, maybe I'll clarify this one because it's just so broad. Yeah, I'm gonna clarify it. King of Cups. Oh, finding people who not only are trying to get to kind of like the same place as you, but finding people who have actually overcome what you are experiencing. King of Cups is about being a master of one's own emotions, not controlling emotions necessarily, absolutely not suppressing emotions, but really being in tune with them and expressing them appropriately and knowing when it's time to kind of just like let certain emotions go, and the freedom to experience emotions that you may not have experienced before or may have not let yourself experience. But yeah, finding somebody who can kind of act as a guide or a role model for you will be very useful because we need to see proof that something different is possible, especially when things are difficult. And the same things aren't going to work for everyone, but I mean, whatever. You understand that, I hope. How to sustain these changes. Queen of Wands. This kind of shows up, especially next to the World, I think. The Queen of Wands, like, she is just, like, determined. She knows who she is, and she knows what she wants, and she knows what she is capable of, and she's not going to dim herself for anybody. Anybody. She's not going to dim herself. She's not going to pretend that she is still stuck in low level. She's not going to act like she's still stuck in old emotional patterns just to make other people feel comfortable. She is just going to be herself, and she is going to embrace all that life throws at her. But yeah, to be sovereign, to be yourself, and to not hold yourself back just because you want others to feel comfortable. And additional guidance, 7 of Cups. Oh, fun. uh if you don't have a goal, you're not gonna know when you've reached it. If you don't know what it is that you want to attain, if you don't know what it is that you want to be capable of, then what are you doing? Then where are you going? What are you gonna do to get nowhere? So having an idea of who you want to be and what you want to be experiencing a year from now, 5 years from now, who do you want yourself to be 5 years from now? I remember when I was kind of in the earlier stages of my healing journey, I wrote like a letter to myself from myself 5 years in the future. I think I did this in like 2017. I haven't looked at it since then because I don't want to. But it was a nice exercise for getting an idea of what I really want and who I really want to be. So that's one method, is to kind of like think about who you want to be 5 years from now and then work backwards to figure out what you need to do in order to get there and take baby steps, set ourselves up for success. And I think going back to the 8 of Wands here and kind of like the 7 of Pentacles, I just really want to caution you against being too ambitious. Not by being too ambitious in your goals. I think it's good to have ambitious goals, especially if they're like 5 year, 10 year, whatever. But I think it's important to not be overly ambitious about what you can do in a day because you don't want to burn yourself out before you even started. So yeah, I just really, really, because if you're going from being overly lenient on yourself to kind of like being a bit more disciplined, it can be kind of easy to just like try to go from 25% to 100% or to beat yourself up for what you're not able to do or to just like, whatever. I just really want to caution against that. And I think that kind of shows up too in the Five of Wands. Not only, recognizing when you're holding yourself back by falling into old patterns, but also recognizing when you are pushing yourself too hard or being mean to yourself. So, yes, that is what I have for this general astrology reading for the sidereal full moon in Capricorn. I hope that this was useful for you. I will also be posting a general reading for all 12 signs coming soon, if not already out there. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Have a lovely full moon and support yourself the way that you would support a friend. Bye!